My parents canceled my 18th birthday party because my 16-year-old sister was feeling overlooked. They expected me to understand. I didn't say a word. I just started packing. 2 years later, my sister saw me on the local news, and her resulting meltdown burned their entire world to the ground. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The invitations were already sent. They were simple, elegant things I'd designed myself, printed on cream cardstock. Elena is turning 18, they announced in a tasteful navy blue script. I hadn't asked for much, just a small garden party in our backyard with my handful of close friends and our extended family. It was a milestone, 18, adulthood. It was supposed to be the one day that was, unequivocally, mine. I was sitting at the kitchen table, finalizing the catering order on my laptop, when the family meeting was called. I was already feeling fragile. It was the middle of midterms, and I'd been running on caffeine and 4 hours of sleep a night, my throat scratchy and my head pounding. My father, Andrew, cleared his throat, a sound that always preceded bad news. My mother, Maria, sat across from me, her hands folded primly. My sister, Megan, 16 years old and the epicenter of our family's emotional universe, was pointedly staring at her phone, though a small, smug smile played on her lips. "Elena, honey," my mother began, her voice dripping with that faux sympathetic tone I'd come to despise. "We need to talk about your party." I saved the catering draft and closed my laptop. "What about it? Is the deposit cleared?" "Well, about that," my father said, adjusting his glasses. "We're going to have to postpone it." I blinked. Postpone it? My birthday is next Saturday, the caterer is booked, people have RSVP'd. "We know, sweetheart," Maria said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. I pulled it away. "But your sister, Megan, is just having a really hard time right now." I looked at Megan. She looked perfectly fine, scrolling through Instagram with the intense focus of a surgeon. A hard time with what? "She's feeling very overlooked," Maria said, as if this was a grave diagnosis. All this, Elena's big 18th talk, it's just a lot for her. Her exams didn't go as well as she'd hoped, and she's feeling a bit left behind. I stared at them, dumbfounded. Megan is feeling overlooked, so I have to cancel my 18th birthday party. Is that what you're saying? "We're not canceling," Andrew chimed in, "just postponing. We can do something small later, maybe a dinner, just us." "She should be more understanding, Andrew," Maria said, now directing her words at me. "Elena, you're the older sister. You've always been so mature. You know how sensitive Megan is. This is a very delicate time for her." Megan chose that moment to sigh dramatically. "It's just, everything is about Elena right now. College, the stupid party, it's like I don't even exist." The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it almost made me laugh. Megan, who had never not been the center of attention. Megan, whose every C- was met with tutors and therapists, while my straight A's were met with a distracted, "That's nice, dear." Megan, who had gotten a brand new car for her 16th birthday, while I was saving my part-time job money for a bus pass for college. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to snap out of it, waiting for the punchline. It never came. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "It's canceled." "It's for the best, honey," my mother said, smiling, as if she'd just solved a complex problem. "This way, there's no resentment. We're a family. We support each other." I looked at Megan's smirking face. I looked at my mother's placid, enabling smile. I looked at my father, who was already retreating behind his newspaper, his part in the execution complete. I felt the flu-like symptoms I'd been fighting all week surge, but they were eclipsed by a sudden, glacial calm. The headache, the sore throat, the exhaustion, it all vanished, replaced by a singular, cold clarity. I stood up from the table. "Okay." My mother beamed. "Oh, thank you, honey. I knew you'd understand. You're such a good sister." Megan scoffed. "Yeah, whatever." I didn't say another word. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply walked out of the kitchen, went upstairs to my bedroom, and closed the door. I sat on my bed for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of the television downstairs, the occasional burst of laughter from Megan. They thought I was being understanding. They thought I was being the mature one, the family's built-in shock absorber. They had no idea what had just happened. They hadn't postponed a party, they had detonated a bridge. The why had shown me, in no uncertain terms, that I did not matter. My milestones were disposable. My feelings were irrelevant. I was not a daughter. I was a supporting character in the Megan show. And as I sat there in the quiet of my room, the cream-colored invitations stacked neatly on my desk. A single thought echoed in my mind. Okay. I opened my laptop. I didn't go to the catering website. I went to my online bank account. I started planning my exit. The betrayal was so profound, so complete, that it didn't even hurt. It was a clean cut. The emotional tether I'd held to my family for 17 years and 358 days was severed. The betrayal wasn't the canceled party. It was the chilling realization that my entire life had been a lie. The next week was a masterclass in emotional detachment. I became a ghost in my own home. I was polite, quiet, and utterly vacant. I did my chores. I finished my midterms, acing everyone. When my parents praised my maturity and understanding about the party, I just nodded. "You see, Andrew," my mother would say at dinner, "Elena gets it, family first." I would just smile, a small, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes, and ask for the salt. My 18th birthday came and went. I woke up to a happy birthday text from my best friend, Sarah. My parents gave me a card with $20 in it and a vague promise of that family dinner that would never materialize. Megan, naturally, had a crisis that morning. Her favorite jeans were still in the wash, and the ensuing drama eclipsed any mention of my turning 18. It was just another Saturday. But they were all too absorbed in Megan's latest emotional wildfire to notice what I was doing. They didn't notice me making quiet trips to the bank. They didn't notice me scanning and uploading documents to a secure cloud drive. They didn't notice me selling my old textbooks, my bike, and the few pieces of jewelry I owned that hadn't been hand-me-downs from Megan. My family operated on noise. Megan was the noise, her demands, her tears, her theatrical joys. My parents were the frantic audience, applauding and placating. I had always been the quiet stage manager, the one making sure the lights stayed on. Now, I was using that quiet to dismantle the set. They had forgotten one crucial thing. My grandmother, my father's mother, had been a quiet woman too, a woman who had seen the dynamics of her son's family with painful clarity. When she passed away 2 years prior, she had left me a small inheritance. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. $10,000, tucked away in a trust that I would gain full access to on my 18th birthday. It was left to me, and only me, with a handwritten note, "For your independence, Elena, don't let anyone make you small." My parents knew about the money, of course, but they had already earmarked it. They saw it as a nice contribution to my college fund, which they generously managed for me. They assumed I would happily hand it over, just as I had always handed over my babysitting money, my part-time job earnings. All of it poured into the family account that mostly paid for Megan's writing lessons and impulse buys. On my 18th birthday, while Megan was weeping about her jeans, I was on my laptop, initiating the transfer of my inheritance into a new, private bank account at a different institution. An account my parents had no access to and no knowledge of. The investigation wasn't about them, it was about me. I researched bus schedules. I found a shared apartment listing in a city 3 states away, near the state university I'd been accepted to. I'd gotten a full academic scholarship, something my parents had dismissed as good, but we'd rather you go to the local community college and stay home to help with Megan. I'd deferred my acceptance for a semester, but I could still enroll in the spring. I packed 2 suitcases, one with clothes, one with my laptop, my documents, and my programming books. I left everything else. I left the photo albums, the childhood toys, the girl they thought they knew. 2 weeks after my 18th birthday, I waited until they were all asleep. Maria and Andrew were asleep in their room, and Megan was at a sleepover, her absence a rare pocket of silence in the house. I wrote a single note and left it on the kitchen table, right where they had canceled my life. It read, "You were right, I should be more understanding. I understand that my presence here is no longer required. I've gone to start my own life. Do not contact me." I called a rideshare service, and just after 2:00 a.m., I walked out the front door without looking back. As the car pulled away from the curb, I felt my phone buzz. A text from my mother. I didn't read it. I powered the phone off, pulled the SIM card out, and tossed it from the car window onto the highway. The sense of relief was overwhelming. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was the breathtaking, terrifying, beautiful feeling of a blank page. The cold, clear silence I'd been living in for 2 weeks finally had a purpose. It was the sound of my future beginning. For the first 6 months, I was just surviving. The city was new, loud, and indifferent. I moved into a tiny room in a shared apartment with 3 other students. My inheritance was my lifeline, but I guarded it fiercely. I got a job at a 24-hour diner, working the graveyard shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I'd come home smelling of coffee and bacon grease, sleep for 5 hours, and then head to my classes at the university. I was majoring in computer science. It was brutal. I was exhausted, lonely, and constantly running on a low-grade hum of anxiety. There were moments when I'd be wiping down a sticky counter at 3 a.m., my eyes burning with fatigue, and I'd wonder if I'd made a horrible mistake. But then I'd remember. I'd remember my mother's placid smile as she took away my milestone. I'd remember my father's silence. I'd remember Megan's smirk. And I'd know, with absolute certainty, that this exhaustion was freedom. This struggle was mine. The victory would be mine, too. I never heard from my family because I'd made it impossible. I had a new phone number, a new bank, a new address. I was a digital ghost. In all my memories of home, I lived in Megan's shadow. It wasn't a normal shadow, it was an all-consuming eclipse. Megan was not just the golden child. She was the sun, and the rest of us were just an orbiting collection of rocks, expected to reflect her light. My mother, Maria, was the chief astronomer of this twisted solar system. Megan's sensitivity was her full-time job. When Megan was 14, she decided she wanted to be a model. Maria spent thousands on professional headshots and drove her to auditions, all of which Megan bombed because she couldn't handle the slightest criticism. When the modeling career flamed out, it was my fault, apparently, for not being more supportive and making her feel self-conscious. When I won the state science fair at 16, a project I'd worked on for a year, the family celebration was cut short because Megan threw a tantrum. She suddenly developed a fever and couldn't breathe from the stress of me getting all the attention. My father, Andrew, spent the night at the hospital with her while I quietly put my trophy in my room. The diagnosis: a mild panic attack, brought on by stress. My parents grounded me for a week for causing a scene and upsetting my sister. Andrew was a different kind of antagonist. He was a man made of paper, folding to the slightest breeze. His only priority was peace at any cost, and the cost was always me. "Just let her have it, Elena," was the soundtrack of my childhood. "It's not worth the fight. Be the bigger person." What they never understood, what they never tried to understand, was that being the bigger person is just a slow-motion suicide. You get smaller and smaller, slicing off pieces of yourself to feed someone else's ego until there's nothing left. I had given them my childhood. I'd given them my peace, my achievements, and my silence. They had tried to take my 18th birthday. They had tried to take my future. I channeled all that cold, quiet anger I'd stored up for 2 weeks and poured it into my code. At the diner, between orders, I'd scribble algorithms on napkins. In the library, I'd stay until closing. In my second semester, I met a guy named Ben in my advanced algorithms class. He was quiet like me, but his eyes lit up when he talked about data structures. We became partners on a project. I showed him an idea I'd been working on, a simple app to help students organize and trade their textbooks, cutting out the predatory university bookstore. He loved it. He didn't just love it, he saw its potential. "This is more than a trading app, Elena," he said, his eyes wide. "This could be an entire learning platform. We could integrate flashcard generators, study group locators." That night, we didn't go to the diner. We went to the 24-hour computer lab. We coded until sunrise. And Edulink, our new company, was born. We were two broke, tired, and fiercely ambitious students. My inheritance was almost gone, but I had my scholarship and my part-time job. Ben had his. We poured every spare second and every spare dollar into our idea. I was building more than an app. I was building a fortress. Every line of code was a brick. Every successful compilation was another stone in the wall. A wall my family could never, ever climb. The next year and a half was a blur of caffeine, code, and cortisol. We dropped out of university. It was the most terrifying decision I'd ever made. My scholarship was the only safety net I had, and I was voluntarily cutting it. But Edulink was growing faster than we could handle. It had started as a campus-wide phenomenon and was now being adopted by other universities across the state. We were working 18-hour days out of our craw. M-Pet apartment, and the diner job was a distant memory. My trap wasn't something I had to set. It was the life I was building. My leverage was my own competence. While my family had been grooming Megan for a life of celebrated mediocrity, they had ignored me. And in that ignorance, they had allowed me to become sharp. They had taught me to rely on no one but myself. They had no idea what I was capable of. I had spent my entire childhood as an invisible girl, learning to observe, to plan, to execute in silence. I was now applying those same skills to my business. We needed funding. We were running the servers on a prayer and a string of maxed-out student credit cards. Ben and I polished our pitch deck and started making the rounds to local angel investors. It was a humiliating, soul-crushing process. A dozen no's in a row. A dozen dismissive men in suits who looked at me, a 19-year-old girl, and saw a hobby, not a company. The last meeting on our list was with a small, local venture capital firm. We walked in, exhausted and defeated. And sitting at the head of the table was a woman named Sarah Jenkins. She was sharp, no nonsense, and had a reputation for finding needles in haystacks. She listened to our pitch for 20 minutes without saying a word. When we finished, she leaned back and just stared at me. "You built the back-end architecture yourself?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "both of us." "And your user acquisition cost is 0. "It's all word of mouth," Ben said. "Students love it." She was quiet for another minute. "I've seen a dozen versions of this idea. They all fail. Why are you different?" I took a deep breath. "Because they're built by people who want to sell something to students. We're built by students who need this to exist. We aren't just building a company. We are solving our own problem. And," I looked her right in the eye, "we are too stubborn and too focused to fail." A small smile touched her lips. She saw it. The same quiet, unbreakable determination she had in herself. We walked out of that office with a $500,000 seed investment. That money changed everything. We got a real office, a small, windowless box, but it was ours. We hired 2 more developers. We refined the app. We launched Edulink 2 with a new suite of tools. Within 6 months, we were on 50 campuses in 10 states. I was no longer Elena, the diner waitress. I was Elena, co-founder and CEO of a burgeoning tech startup. I bought a small, professional-looking condo. I paid off my credit cards. I started eating food that didn't come from a microwave. I had just turned 20. The entire time, there was silence from my family. Not a word. I hadn't expected one. As far as I knew, they thought I was a college dropout working a dead-end job somewhere. It was better that way. Then, one of our new hires, a young marketing lead, came into my office. "Elena, bad news and good news." "Give me the bad news," I said, not looking up from my code. "Our server costs are going to triple next quarter." "Expected good news. KTVL Channel 4 wants to do a segment on you." I stopped typing, On me, why? It's for their Local Legends series. They're doing a 30 under 30 special. They want to interview the 20-year-old CEO who's changing education. They want to film it here, tomorrow. Ben was ecstatic. This is it, Elena. This is free press. This is huge. A cold spike of fear shot through me. My hometown was well within the KTVL broadcast area. My parents watched Channel 4 every night. They were going to see me. For a moment, I wanted to say no, to hide, to stay the ghost I'd been for 2 years. Then I thought about that 17-year-old girl sitting at the kitchen table, being told her milestone didn't matter. I thought about the girl who quietly packed her bags and stepped into the unknown. Okay, I said, my voice firm, book it. I would not be small, not ever again. The film crew was professional and efficient. They set up lights in our small, buzzing office. The reporter, a polished woman named Cynthia, mic'd me up and asked me to sit at my desk. Just act natural. The interview was a blur. I talked about the app, about our mission, about the challenges of being a young woman in tech. Cynthia was impressed. It's incredible, she said. To have this kind of success at just 20, you must have an incredibly supportive family. There it was, the question I'd been dreading. I smiled, a calm, measured expression I'd perfected in boardrooms. I was lucky to learn, very early on, the importance of self-reliance. I'm a big believer that you have to be your own biggest supporter. When you build your life on a foundation of your own hard work and your own validation, it's unshakable. Cynthia, clearly sensing a story, pressed. So they weren't in the picture. I've been on my own since I was 18, I said, my tone light, as if discussing the weather. It taught me to be resourceful. EduLink was born from that resourcefulness. We're a team built on merit, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. The segment was edited beautifully. It was flattering. It made me look like a prodigy. It aired on the 6 p.m. news 2 days later. I was at the office, working late, when my phone buzzed. A new number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. 10 missed calls in 2 minutes. Curious, I picked it up on the 11th try. Hello. Elena, is that you? The voice was thin, reedy, and instantly recognizable. It was my mother, Maria, but it was a voice I'd never heard before. It was high-pitched, frantic. This is she, I said, my voice cold and professional. Oh, Elena, thank God, we saw you on the news. A CEO all this time, why didn't you tell us? I've been busy, I said. Busy, you've been. You have a company, we thought. We didn't know what to think, we've been so worried. Were you? I asked. I've been gone for 2 years. This is the first time you've tried to call me. How did you even get this number? Your Aunt Linda saw the segment, she found your company's website. Elena, you have to come home, you have to. Your sister. My sister what? She's not well, Elena. She's having a complete breakdown. She saw you on TV and she locked herself in her room. She's hysterical. She's saying terrible things. I leaned back in my chair, the cold, glacial calm from that day in the kitchen returning. What things? That we ruined her life, that you stole her future. It's nonsense. You have to come home and talk to her. You have to tell her it's not. It's not a competition, and Elena, honey, we're in a bit of a tight spot. I waited. Your father, his hours were cut, and Megan's, well, her university costs are just so high. Seeing you, so successful, we just thought, as your family, maybe you could help us out, just until we get back on our feet. There it was, the hook, the pivot. In the span of 2 minutes, she had gone from worried mother to supplicant. I pictured her in our old kitchen, my father wringing his hands beside her, Megan's wails audible from upstairs. The thought didn't bring me pain. It didn't bring me joy. It brought me nothing. Maria, I said, and the use of her first name made her stop talking. I am not your daughter, not anymore. You made that clear 2 years ago. My sister's emotional state is not my responsibility. It never was. And my finances, I laughed, a short, sharp, humorless sound, are certainly not your concern. Elena, how can you be so cruel? After everything we did for you. Everything you did for me? Or everything you did to me? You canceled my 18th birthday. You dismissed my achievements. You made my entire life about placating my sister. You taught me one lesson, Maria, and I learned it well. I am on my own. And I am, you are on your own. Do not ever call this number again. I hung up. I blocked the number. I powered off my phone and stared out the window at the city lights. I had just faced the first major confrontation, the first volley in a war I didn't even know I was fighting. And I felt nothing but peace. The ghost was gone. Elena, the CEO, had just taken her place. The phone call was just the beginning. The fortress I had built was sound, but I had underestimated the desperation of the people on the outside. A few days later, Ben forwarded me an email. It was from my father, Andrew, sent to the generic info@edulink.com address. Subject: a father's plea. Elena, your mother is a wreck. Megan won't come out of her room. You don't understand what you've done. You humiliated us. All our friends, our family, they all saw you on TV talking about how you were on your own. You made us look like monsters. How could you just leave? How could you cut us off? We were just trying to do what was best for everyone. Megan is fragile. You've always been the strong one. It was your job to be understanding. Now she's failing all her classes. She says you stole her motivation. She says you got all the smart genes and it's not fair. Your mother is trying to get her into therapy, but it's so expensive. All we're asking is for you to make this right. You have so much now, it wouldn't hurt you to share it. You owe your sister, you owe us, we're your family. Please call home, Dad. I read the email, and what struck me was the sheer, pathological denial. They hadn't changed. They hadn't reflected. They had simply recast the narrative. In their new version, I was the villain, the cruel and selfish dragon hoarding a pile of gold. I deleted the email without a reply. But the antagonists were escalating. The following week, my Aunt Linda, my father's sister, the one who had always sent me $50 on my birthday without fail, called my office. My assistant, wary after the last incid. NT patched her through to me. Elena, she sounded cautious, it's Aunt Linda. Hi, Aunt Linda, it's good to hear your voice. Oh, Elena, I saw you on the news. I am so proud of you, I can't even tell you. Her voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, that means a lot. But, honey, your mother called me, she's telling everyone a very different story. What kind of story? I sighed, leaning my head on my hand. That you had some kind of breakdown, that you got involved with a bad crowd, stole money from them, your inheritance and their savings, and ran off. And that this company is some kind of front, that you're in trouble. Andrew is he's a mess, he's backing her up. They're trying to get the extended family to pool money to find you and get you help. This was new. This wasn't just begging. This was defamation. They weren't just desperate, they were trying to regain control by destroying my reputation. Aunt Linda, I said, my voice steady, none of that is true. I left with my own money. I built this company with my co-founder from scratch. I'm not in trouble. They are. I know, honey, I think I always knew. Your mother, she's always been obsessed with Megan's potential. She never saw yours. There was a long pause. But they're desperate, and Maria is convincing. She's showing people pictures of Megan, saying she's sick with worry. They're painting you as this ungrateful, mentally unstable runaway. The spell was breaking. The family, which had always orbited Maria and Megan, was starting to see the cracks. This new, outrageous lie was too much for some. But the desperation was building. Megan, still struggling to be the center of attention, finally emerged. She didn't call, she didn't email, she went public. She created a public social media page. It was a GoFundMe-style blog filled with pictures of her looking pale and sad. The title was, "My Sister Abandoned Me, Help Me Heal." In a long, rambling post, she told the world her version. How her cold, calculating sister, me, had been jealous of her all her life. How I had staged my disappearance to hurt the family. How my sudden success was deeply suspicious and had triggered her anxiety and depression, forcing her to drop out of school. She was asking for donations to cover her medical bills and trauma therapy. It was the most Megan thing she could have possibly done. A performance of victimhood designed for maximum attention and financial gain. I stared at the page. My marketing team had found it. "What do we do?" Ben asked, his face grim. "This is libel. We can have it taken down." I looked at the picture of Megan, her face a mask of faux anguish. I looked at the comments from a few of my parents' gullible friends. "Oh, you poor thing. Your sister is a monster." And then I saw the comments from my old high school friends, from people who knew me. "This is insane. Elena was the kindest person I knew." "Wait, you're the victim?" I seem to remember Elena's 18th birthday party getting canceled because you wanted a new pair of shoes. This has to be a joke. Elena is a genius. You're just not. The spell wasn't just breaking, it was shattering. The irrefutable proof wasn't something I had to present. It was my life. It was the public, verifiable success of my company versus Megan's public, theatrical begging. Megan's desperate attempt to regain the narrative had backfired. She had, in her arrogance, exposed herself. "We don't do anything," I said to Ben. "We don't touch it, let her talk. She's her own worst enemy." The fundraiser stalled at $250. And then, KTVL Channel 4, the station that had aired my interview, got wind of the story. A successful, inspiring local CEO being accused by her estranged sister of, well, what exactly? It was a human interest story. A reporter from their investigative team called my office. "Ms. Elena," he said, "we're running a follow-up piece on your incredible story, and we'd love to get your comment on these rather serious accusations from your sister." The public showdown I never asked for was here, and I was ready. It wasn't a formal showdown in a public place. It was something far more modern and far more devastating. It was a follow-up segment on the 6 p.m. news. They billed it as The Other Side of Success, a local CEO's family drama. They had interviewed Megan. The footage was cringeworthy. She was sitting in her bedroom, posters of bands on the wall, her face blotchy. She just left, she sobbed to the reporter. She never said why. She was always different, so cold, and now she has all this success and she won't even help her own family. She won't help me. I don't know why she hates me so much. The reporter then turned to my parents, who were sitting on their living room couch looking haggard. "We just want our daughter home," my mother, Maria, said, clutching a tissue. "We're so worried she's in over her head. This isn't the Elena we knew." Then the segment cut to me. I wasn't in my living room. I was in my office boardroom, sitting at the head of the long, polished table. I was wearing a sharp, professional navy blue blazer. I was not crying. I was calm, articulate, and in complete control. "Mr. Davies," I said to the reporter, "I didn't want to make this a public matter, but my family has left me no choice. I do not hate my sister. I feel nothing for her at all. I am not a runaway, and I am not in trouble. I am a 20-year-old woman who has built a successful company through relentless hard work." "So why did you leave?" the reporter asked. "Your family says it was a mystery." "It was no mystery," I said, looking directly into the camera. "I left 2 weeks after my 18th birthday. I left because my parents, Maria and Andrew, informed me that my 18th birthday party was canceled. The reason given was that my 16-year-old sister, Megan, was feeling overlooked. I was told I needed to be more understanding." I didn't argue. I understood perfectly. I understood that in my family's eyes, my milestones, my feelings, and my entire existence were secondary to my sister's fleeting emotions. I understood that I was not a daughter, but a role, the responsible one, the mature one. So I made a mature, responsible decision. I took the inheritance my grandmother left me, money she specifically earmarked for my independence, and I left to build a life where my worth wasn't negotiable. I have funded my own education and built my own company. I have not asked them for a single thing. Their claims that I stole money are false. Their claims that I am unstable are, as you can see, false. The truth is, my family is not worried about me. They are angry with me. They are angry because I am no longer there to be their scapegoat. They are angry because I have built a life they cannot control. And they are angry because, for the first time, they are facing the consequences of their own actions. My sister is not having a breakdown because she misses me. She is having a breakdown because she saw me on this very news station. And for the first time in her life, she is not the center of attention. I wish them well, but my life is my own. The EduLink team is my family now, and we are very, very busy. It was a calm, systematic, and utterly devastating exposure. I hadn't raised my voice. I had simply presented the facts. The moment the segment aired, the family imploded. Megan, watching the broadcast, had the final, powerful moment of realization. But it wasn't the one I expected. She didn't realize her own faults. She realized that she had lost. She had been publicly and permanently dethroned. She didn't just lock herself in her room. She went on a rampage. Aunt Linda called me the next day. She was breathless. "Elena, you did it. You burned them to the ground without even lighting a match." "What happened?" "Megan," she snapped. She started screaming. Not at you, at them, at Maria and Andrew. She was throwing things. She smashed her own laptop. She screamed that it was their fault, that they had let you go, that they were stupid for not seeing you were smart and keeping you under control. She said they had coddled her and made her weak, while they had ignored you and made you strong. She said you got the good life, and it was their fault she was stuck with them. She packed a bag and left. "She's gone, Elena. She's at her friend's house and says she's never coming back." The public humiliation hadn't just exposed the antagonists. It had turned them on each other. Megan, in her final, triumphant act of narcissism, had made herself the victim of her own parents' enabling. And in doing so, she had broken the family forever. The downfall was absolute. Megan's departure was the final straw that broke the spine of my parents' fragile marriage. With both daughters gone, one a public success, the other a public failure, they had no one left to focus on but each other. The silence in that house, once my only refuge, must have been deafening. Aunt Linda kept me updated in short, sporadic emails. Maria and Andrew, left alone, finally turned all their years of misdirected energy on each other. Maria blamed Andrew for not being strong enough to manage the family. Andrew blamed Maria for her obsession with Megan. The house, which was already in a tight spot, went into foreclosure. They were forced to sell it at a loss and move into a small, rented apartment. Maria's part-time real estate career evaporated. After the news segment, her reputation as a stable, family-oriented woman was ruined. No one wanted to buy a house from the woman who had effectively driven her own daughter away. Andrew, quiet, defeated Andrew, took a demotion at his firm just to keep a job. Megan's story was less dramatic but just as sad. She dropped out of university for good. She bounced from friend's couch to friend's couch, her victim narrative wearing thin with everyone who took her in. Without her parents to manage her life, she was incapable. She had been trained to be a receiver, and when there was nothing left to receive, she simply stopped. Last I heard, she was working as a part-time cashier, bitter and furious at the world that had cheated her. The consequences were definitive. They had built their entire family on a rotten foundation, the sacrifice of one child for the comfort of another. When I removed myself, the foundation crumbled and the whole house fell down. And me. My life moved forward. EduLink continued to grow. We secured a Series A round of funding. We moved into a real office with windows. I was 21 and managing a team of 30 people. About 6 months after the TV interview, I was sorting through mail at my condo and found a letter. It was handwritten on cheap notebook paper. It was from my father. "Elena, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't blame you if you don't. Your mother and I are separated. The house is gone. Megan doesn't speak to us. I've been doing a lot of thinking about that day, About everything. You were right, I was a coward. I just wanted things to be quiet. I let your mother. I let Megan. I let it all happen. I thought being mature meant just taking it. I thought I was protecting Megan, but I was just afraid of her. And I sacrificed you because you were strong. You were the one who wouldn't break. That was wrong, I broke you, but you put yourself back together. I am so sorry, Elena. I know it means nothing now, but I am sorry, I am proud of you. I see what you've built, your grandmother. She would have been so proud. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for money. I wanted you to know that I see it now. Dad. I read the letter, and for the first time in 3 years, I cried. I cried for the 17-year-old girl who had just wanted a party. I cried for the father I should have had. And then I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, and let it go. It was a resolution, not a reconciliation, but a closing of the book. The next week, I used some of my own resources to quietly set up a scholarship at my old high school. It wasn't named after me. It was the Independence Fund, designated for students from difficult home environments who had a passion for technology. My journey had started with a profound sense of betrayal, but it had led me to a life of my own making. I had my company, I had Ben, I had my team, I had peace. The vindication wasn't in their failure, it was in my success. I had faced their attempts to diminish me, and I had built a world where I was, finally, the main character.